So these are the basic contents that are there in the Factories Act, which you are supposed to be thorough about. So first is basically the historical fact of factory legislation. We are going to do all the contents of Factory Acts one by one. Then you are going to understand what is the, you need to know what is the object of the act, why this act was formed, and what is the main crux of it being formed. Then you also need to know the scope and the applicability of the act. These are the three main the scope, the applicability, and the object. You need to be very clear with this thing about the Factory Act. Then there are certain specific definitions that are asked from the exam, and the definitions are basically in alignment to the specific sections also. So you need to know those definitions. We are going to do all the definitions, and I'm also going to teach you quick ways to learn, and because definitely for you can understand also there are a lot of facts to be mugged up. So instead of all that mugging thing going on and that confusion, I'm going to give you a quick way so that you can always remember it and try to regather it during your exam, so while you are actually attempting it. So that is also I'm going to be teaching you. Then the approval, licensing, and the registration that is required for setting up of factories, what are the rules and regulations and guidelines and everything. Then we are going to do the inspecting staff. There is a supposed commissioner that is assigned by the state and the central government. We are going to learn about that also. Then we are going to do the certifying surgeons. A factory as a manufacturing industry needs a health inspector and a lot of I would say staff in accordance to the inspection and everything. So that is on medical lines, right? So we need to understand this also. Then specific health you are going to be studying. In health also there are certain I would say points that you need to keep in your mind. Then safety, what is safety and how it is in accordance to the different sections of the Factory Act, we are going to know that. Provisions relating to the hazardous processes that is there in the factory or the industry. What is, then you have to, we cannot miss the human aspect of the people working it, because they are the main resources who are, and the main source of, I would say, empowerment for any business module also. So the welfare of workers is very, very important. And similarly on those lines, we need to know the working hours of adult workers, employment of young persons, annual leave with wages, and other features. So these are all the topics that I'm going to be teaching you in this particular Factory Act of 1948. Right. For today's session specifically, I have chosen few topics so that you get a well-versed idea that how the teaching and how the understanding of this topic is basically to be received. Right. So let me just start with the session now. For the session today that I'm going to be teaching you, I'm going to be specifically be focusing upon the historical facts of the factory legislation, which is very important. We're going to go to the history of understanding that why this Factory Act 1948 was in the first place established. Then we are going to understand that we are going to actually define the act clearly so that you know very well that what this act is all about. Then the scope and applicability of the act, right? Then the specific definitions, this is very important. Please make sure that you are well versed and you have learned all the definitions that are there in the Factory Act. And similarly for other acts also. Definitions in itself is, since your exam is basically an MCQ based exam, so such prompt questions can be very frequently be asked. So you need to be well versed with these definitions. Then the health, about the health in itself is a topic in the Factories Act. Safety, welfare of workers, working of work hours of adult workers, and employment of young persons. So all this basically we have discussed in the previous slides. I am just going to giving you a gist about that what for today's particular session I am going to be teaching you. Okay. So at Diadme IES we have also started the classes for the non-general subjects. So you can join for EPFO and the APFC exam, and you can even join our Telegram channel. For other details, you can visit our website. Thank you. Okay, let me just, before moving on to what this act is all about and everything that is within. See, Factories Act is itself a act which you have to understand from the perspective of you being a future officer. So in Factories Act 1948, basically you need to know the main 5 key points. You need to be thorough with these 5 key points. And why 5? Because the entire Factories Act 1948 revolves around these 5 key points. If you are well versed with these 5 key points, you have very clearly mastered over the Factories Act 1948, right? So for some student it becomes like, ma'am, it is so much of facts to be learned, to be mugged up, will it become boring? See, it is not about the boring facts. You can make these boring facts also interesting by the way or the kind of method you are using to learn these facts, right? It can be sometimes monotonous also, but of course the right approach that you are using, that would definitely keep that good aspect of you actually remembering in while writing the exam. So it is not that boring. Definitely I am going to be providing you slides, and here also you are going to get notes and everything. So the questions are basically 5 to 7, and in the exam, so you can even expect this to be a full-fledged scoring subject, right? So make sure that you don't miss out on the easy 5-7 mark questions that you are already mastering over for scoring. So let's just understand it from this subject, in particular from this perspective, okay? Okay, so coming back to the Factories Act 1948, students, you need to know the objective, scope and coverage of the act. There is a clear definition. If somebody asks you also what is Factory Act, what is the objective of it, why it was established, you need to be very clear and thorough with that. Then you need to make sure that you need to know the provisions regarding health, safety and welfare. The Government of India had also started several there have been several case studies also. We will be doing those case studies also for today's session. So you are going to understand that these provisions have been always been on the go. They have always been re-revised and re-revised depending upon the kind of case that appears. So with time, of course, a lot of parameters changes, but it has always been about escalating to a better level of including Factories Act in the entire functioning, okay? So then the provisions that are also relating to working hours, holidays and leave, you need to know that this basically is regarding, these two are basically regarding the human angle that is associated with the Factories Act, so you need to be very well clear with this. Then also you need to know the provisions related to the women and young persons. Again, these three are well aligned with each other, because the provisions related to all these 3 topics you need to be aware of. Then you need to know the administrative and the enforcement machinery. On the management level also, how Factories Act 1948 is included, you need to know that also. So these are the main 5 key points which you need to keep in mind, and you need to make sure that you are well versed with, right? So let's start with the first thing. Let me take you back to the fact that why this Factory Act in first of 1948 was in the first place included. Means what was the prime reason of it being included, and now it being a part of our Constitution of India, right? So it dates back to the pre-independence era. We all know that during the British era, India was not at all completely on the lines of developed in context of industry. So there were just 2 mills of cotton and jute that were also established in the year 1851. So that time there were the 2 industries that were set up, and definitely there were no other I would say chemical or any other type of manufacturing industry that was there. There were just the 2 major mills that were set up. They used to call it. Gradually in 1851, first the cotton mill was established, and post that in 1855 then the jute industry or the jute mill came into India. So these were the first 2 basic product industry that was actually we started with. So this journey then moved on to 1881, when we were still under the British rule, and in 1881 the Indian Factories Act was passed by the Britishers, and according to that they wanted to provide protection to employees, especially children, because at that point in time everybody was whoever wanted to work was a part of the factory culture. So Britishers, because they were understanding also that politically the environment of the country is becoming quite dynamic in nature. So they wanted to make sure that they are a part, or they develop certain kind of, although it was not on the sympathy lines, but they just wanted to make sure that they are considering India a very important place for them or for the development in general, right? So the factory commission was first appointed in the year 1819. That was the first time the factory commission was established. Then from 1881, it was after 10 years in 1891, the first time the term factory was defined, right? The definition of the factory was amended to include now including the premises in which the 50 persons or more were employed. So here you can clearly see in the year 1891 was the very first time that they included the real definition of what a factory would be, right? Then from 1891, then it moved on to the 1934, when we were almost coming close to our country's independence. This act was again re-revised and redrafted, and it was basically redrafted. Recommendations were made by the Royal Commission on the Labour, which was later appointed in the year 1929. And then subsequently in 1934, the Factories Act 1934 was passed, and post independence we as Indians owned and took it as a part of our own Constitution of India and tried to reiterate it in our own Indian culture context and made it Indian Factories Act 1948. So it dates back to that time, and now also from 1948 we are still using the Factories Act 1948, but there have been n number of re-revisions that have been made. There have been several drafts that have been there in the right now, and depending upon, like I just said, the changes are always being, the alteration is always there. So I hope this particular slide has made you understand that how this Factories Act 1948 in the first place came into picture. Okay, just know the dates. You need to be very well versed with the dates. That's why I have drawn this in such a form, so that you can remember this diagram and you can related to the particular history event of the Factories Act 1948. Okay? Right. So let's move on. Now let me just define it simply what a Factory Act 1948 is. It says the object of this act is to protect the human beings from being subjected to the unduly long hours of bodily strain or manual labor. In British era, major point was that they did not consider the Indians as respectable employees. For them, we were just subject of profit making business, right? So post that also, Indians, when we adapted the Indian Factories Act 1948, the first thing that came to the minds of the leaders at that point was that we need to make sure that the humans who are working are treated well, and they are not made to be subjected to any kind of unruly or a kind of any I would say uncomfortable environment, right? So it also seeks to provide that employees should work in a healthy and a sanitary condition. Definitely they are human beings, so they need to also have a good environment where they are working, and they maintain their health also, even if they are working for n number of hours, or the number of hours that are clearly defined in the Factories Act 1948. So main thing was then the safety for the prevention of accidents. Post there was an extra chapter. It is basically, I hope you guys know about the Bhopal gas tragedy. So post Bhopal gas tragedy also, there was a new chapter that was added to the Factories Act of 1948, and it was added in the year 1987. So now this new chapter was added because India faced a very horrifying situation with the Bhopal gas tragedy. Many people died, unfortunately. So then Indian government decided that okay, this is something that there are certain criteria which there have to be amendments made. So we added there was a specific new chapter that was added. So like I just told you, Factories Act is very, very primarily focused on the health of the workers, on the safety environment, on the entire human grounds also, even while the production of any product or service is happening. So make sure that you know this very clearly. They have clearly defined what kind of work is going to be under the umbrella of the term manufacturing. We are going to do that also in the further classes. Right. I hope now you have understood the definition of the Factory Act and what is the objective of this particular act. Now, if you come to the scope and applicability of the law, that ma'am, what is the scope of this law, where is it actually applied? So basically, the act extends to the entire India, right? All the state governments and the central governments make sure that the Factory Act is very well exercised in all the factories that are established under their administration. So it applies to all the factories belonging to the central and the state government. So it is basically there also they monitor and they make sure that all the rules and regulations are also followed. And if not, then strict actions are taken against the defaulters. The benefits of this act is that they are available to persons who are employed in the factory and be converted within the meaning of the term worker is well defined. So there have been a lot of confusion regarding the facts of the term workers. So we have actually we have rised from the slave dynasty. We have had many rulers who have treated Indians as slave, unfortunately. So now, as per the development of the country, we have been working towards the term, different terms have been clearly defined in this Factories Act of 1948, especially the term worker, right? Then it also, besides that, the term factories definition is also very well discussed, and several definitions are also, but worker and factory are the main two definitions which are clearly mainly focused in the Factories Act of 1948. Since the term factory refers to the manufacturing process, right, it would be helpful to know the meaning of the term manufacturing process as defined by the act. So see, from worker, factory, manufacturing process, just to avoid any kind of ambiguity for further reference, all these three terms are clearly defined. So tomorrow nobody can come and clearly say that okay, this is the person and this person is doing this, and he or she is not the worker of our factory. So he or she is supposed to be removed or whatever. As per the Factory Act, this has to be referred to this, and in accordance to this only, the person will be prosecuted or will be exempted from any kind of punishment. Even for the owners also, the occupier of the factory or the person who is the manager or running the industry also, their terms are also who they are, what their responsibilities and roles are, and everything is in clearly details defined here. But three terms, like I just told you, factory, workers and manufacturing process, you need to know, and they are also here. Okay. So when I am talking about the definitions, there is a particular chart that I have included to make it easy for you to learn about this very important definitions that might come in your MCQs. At the end of today's class, we are going to do PYQs also. Okay. Please make sure that you are studying with me very carefully, so that at the end, when we are going to be doing the PYQs, you are participating and you are also understanding. Right. So the first term here, that is adult. So who is an adult? The definition in the under the Factories Act. So all these definitions are under the Factories Act mentioned. So adult means a person who has completed his 18 years of age, and it comes under the section 2A. If you can clearly see here, what I have done in alphabetical order, I have moved on from one term to another, so that you remember this chart, and when you are actually giving your exams or practicing your mock test, you can recall all these things. Then adolescent is basically a person who has completed 15 years of age, but has not reached the 18 years of age. So it is basically between 15 to 18 years of age, and this particular definition comes under the section 2B, right? Then what is the definition of a child? A child is a person who has not definitely attained the age of 15 years. See, for some, it would, for somebody who has not studied labor law, they would be wondering, ma'am, why this very simple definitions are like defined here in the Factories Act. This is basically, like I just told you, these are all very important terms when it comes to any kind of incident or accident. So these definitions are clearly defined to avoid any further kind of confusion or ambiguity. Now, child as a definition itself is a part of section 2C. You need to remember the sections also. Competent person, who is a competent person? A person is basically said to be a competent when this person is recognized by an institution or by the chief of inspector for the purpose of carrying out the test, examination and inspections required to be done in the factory. So he is the person who is basically well versed and experienced and knowledgeable on those lines. And where it is defined? It is defined under the section 2CA. Please make sure that you note that 2CA, right? I hope you can now recall these 4 definitions. Let's move on to some more definitions. Then we have calendar year, and what calendar year clearly defines is basically it means the period of 12 months beginning with the first day of the January in any year. It is different from the financial year which starts from 1st of April. So basically it comes under the section of section 2BB or BB. Then the definition of day, right? From C we have now come to D. So from D we have, it means a period of definitely 12 hours and it is defined in the section 2E, alright. Then we come to the W, which is basically a definition of week, and it is a period of 7 days and it starts at the midnight of Saturday night, right. Then it is clearly defined in the section 2C, okay. So 2A, 2B, 2C, then we did in the previous slide we did 2CA, then we did with 2BB. So you can just make sure that you can match the sections with the particular definition. Then the transmission machinery is basically that any shaft or wheel or drum or a pulley which is running, a system of pulley, coupling, clutch, driving, belt and all those machinery parts which are in process of running or functioning, right. They come under the section 2I, okay. Okay, so let's start with the clear definition of the term worker that we just were about to continue with. So worker itself has a lot of like details related to it. In Factories Act, what it says is a worker means a person employed directly or through an agency. He or she might be hired directly by the manufacturing company or the factory, or by through any middleman or any contractor for that matter, right? It might be with or without the knowledge of the company owner or the person who is actually is the main person who owns the factory. He or she might even not know about that person is hired. So whether for remuneration he or she is hired or not, in the manufacturing process or in cleaning any part of the machinery or premises or the for a manufacturing process. So anything related to the manufacturing thing that is happening along those lines, he or she will be termed as the worker. So if the person is working in any context related to the manufacturing thing process, so he or she will be termed as worker. Please remember that. And it is basically saying that it does not include the members of the armed force of the union. The people from the military or army or air force, they are not basically termed as workers, because definitely they are doing a very dignified and respectable job in context. So there is no basically a differentiation between the two, but they don't come under the term workers, right? And this term worker comes under the section of 2I. Okay, please remember that. I hope now you are very clear with the fact that what is the clear definition of worker, right? There is no confusion in context to this. Then we have the definition of shift and relay. Whether work of the same kind is carried out by two or more sets of workers during the different periods of time. When the same kind of work is being done by two people in different timelines, that is called basically the kind of this such set of work is called relay, and each such time period is called a shift, right? The time period that is associated is called a shift, and the kind of such set of work is called relays, right? So this comes under the section 2R. Okay, I hope now you know the definition of relay as well as shift very clearly. This is basically I would say a very in-depth question. If you have just not studied it in detail, you cannot answer a question if it comes like what is a shift or what is a relay. Okay, so make sure that you know this, right? Then we have a manufacturing process. So manufacturing process is itself clearly defined under the section of 2K. What manufacturing process is, let's see that. Manufacturing process means any process of, so a lot of things are there here. You just need to know the gist of the points. What it is. It is about making, altering or changing, repairing, ornamenting, finishing, packaging, oiling, washing, and so forth, right? Pumping of oil, water, sewage, substances, this is also part of manufacturing. Generating, transforming or transmitting power, that also come under the manufacturing process. Okay. Composing types of printing by letterpress, lithography, photogravure, or similar process of bookbinding. This is also part of manufacturing. Constructing, reconstructing, repairing, refitting, finishing or breaking of ships or vessels, inserting by the Factories Amendment Act 1976. This also comes under the term manufacturing process. Preserving or storing any article in cold storage also comes under the manufacturing process. So tomorrow if there is any kind of a case that is filed in, let's say, High Court or Supreme Court or any District Court of India, and people try to create a confusion that this is a manufacturing process or this is a manufacturing process. So to avoid all that kind of hustle for the later part, all the listed activities that are there in this are a part of the manufacturing process. I will be showing you case studies also where all these terms have been questioned, and there have been a lot of I would say judgments passed by the Supreme Court of India and so forth, who have clearly said that and redefined and reiterated the definitions to avoid, again, like I said, to any kind of confusion. Now, what is the case? The very interesting cases have been here regarding the manufacturing process. So let's take and understand few cases so that you get a good. So case studies might be asked, but I sometimes like it depends upon the level of difficulty of the exam. So you can expect a question. All you need to know is these are some popular cases with this particular term associated with this particular term. So you need to be well versed with them. So good knowledge for this for sure. So basically the first case was against the held by from the state of Bombay versus Ali Sahib Kashmir Thamboli. It was in 1958, and here after the verdict it was mentioned there was a confusion and all that fight happening between the two parties that what is a BD. So basically they said that at the end the judgment was passed that BD is making is basically a manufacturing process. It was not earlier a part of the constitution of the Factories Act 1948. Gradually later in 1995 it came and it became a part of the manufacturing process. Then in Ardeshir versus Bombay State, and it was in the year 1962, it said that the conversion of any kind of a raw film or product into finished product will be termed as a manufacturing process, right? So this was again the part of it. Then there was a third case where it was New Taj Mahal Cafe case of Mangalore versus the inspector of factories at Mangalore. So they went for some inspection and there was certain case filed. So they said the preparation of food stuff and other eatable items in the kitchen of a restaurant and use of a refrigerator, treating or adapting any article with a view to its sale will be termed as manufacturing, right? So these are the few popular three cases that are there in the that have been there in the under the manufacturing process term, and they have because of these cases these terms have been added to the Factories Act of 1935 under the umbrella of manufacturing process. Okay. So now another very important definition, like I told you, is of worker. Worker is in itself is broadly, as it is written also here, it is a person who is employed directly or through any agencies. We have discussed these 2 points. Who is employed in any manufacturing process, cleaning or and machinery, premises. All these definitions we have clearly done. So now I hope you are well versed with the term worker. I am not repeating it, but now I think this term worker itself is very clear in your mind. Okay, let's go ahead and see a few interesting cases that have been there associated with the term worker under the Factories Act of 1948. So three major cases have been there. The first one has been in Chintaman Rao versus State of MP or Madhya Pradesh, and it dates back to 1958, and here it says it gave the restricted meaning to the word directly or through any agency. So again there was certain confusion or certain question regarding the fact that who is like in terms of somebody being recruited or hired. So again Supreme Court of India clearly said that they clearly defined and figured the term and said that what it is going to be. Then in Dharangadra Chemical Works versus State of Saurashtra in the year 1957, again the master's right of superintendent and control of the method of doing the work was defined. So again there was what kind of the role of a superintendent is and what is the role and responsibility going to be clearly of the superintendent and the way they want the work to go ahead with. So that was again defined here in this case. In the state of Kerala versus V.M. Patel in the year 1961, the work of garbling pepper by winnowing, cleaning, washing, drying and in lime and laid out to dry in the warehouse are again termed under the manufacturing process. And the person employed in these processes were workers. People who are going to be working here, they are again going to be termed as workers. So you cannot say that later on anybody comes up and say, okay, this person is doing this job and he or she is not a part of the factory or the company. No, he or she will be considered the worker of that particular organization who is doing the garbling of pepper also. Okay. These are few very interesting cases that I always include, because then these terms become more relevant for you to understand, right? So even if somebody asks you later on also, so you can refer to these cases and try to answer any kind of a question that is projected to you. Again, two cases here. It was basically Shankar Balaji Vajay versus state of Maharashtra, and it says in the year 1957, it says that the Supreme Court said that the such person were not workers because there was no control and supervision over Pandurang. So basically there was some BD, this case was associated with some BD making manufacturing. So they were working from some other place, and but still they were making and delivering BDs to the factory. So that this was something that was there. So Supreme Court of India said, term to avoid any confusion, there was a case filed and all those things happened. So they said that these people were not workers and there was no control because there was no supervision over the Pandurang. Okay. Let's now come to the in Bird Chand Sharma versus first child judge of Nagpur. So it was in AIR 1961, and here the respondents prepared BDs again at the factory, and they were not at the liberty to work at their home. So they were not given that liberty. On these facts, the Supreme Court of India held the respondents were workers, although they are doing it from their home, right? Sorry, they are doing it at the factory and they are not doing at their, that was basically rolling of the BDs that was happening. So again, this act was there, and this was clearly defined by the Supreme Court of India in the Bird Chand Sharma versus first civil judge Nagpur case. Section that I am going to be talking about. So when I talk about the occupier term in itself, as you can see also here, occupier is a person who is basically has the ultimate control over the affairs of the factory. He is the person who has started the the industry or the factory or the business organization, and he is the person who is the main person who established the premises and everything. So in accordance to that, in the case of a company, the directors shall be termed as the occupier, or in the case if the factory is owned by the central government, state government, right? So in that case, the person appointed for the affairs of the factory, that person will be who he or she will be termed as an occupier. Then the central government, state government, or the local authority, as the case may be, shall be deemed to the occupier. So they are basically in context of being respondent to the specific three governments, and any kind of, so basically this person is the first person who is responsible for the same. The specific duties of the occupier are, they are mentioned in the section 7A, and they says plant maintenance that is safe and without risk of health of workers. That again is the duty to be maintained by the occupier, to safeguard the health and the safety of the use of handling, storage and transportation of goods. Definitely the safety is the main context. Even the profit making part of products that are and services that are being provided by the factory is always in accordance to the safety environment that is there. Providing information, instruction, training, supervision to ensure health, safety of all the workers, monitoring of the work environment, and also it lays down all the rules that is prepared with the 9 written statements of the policy with respect to the health and safety. A prior documentation is signed between the two parties that where the worker is clearly defined all the kind of further consequences related to health and safety that might come up in the later stage with the kind of worker he or she is doing. So this is clearly so that later on nobody comes and try to question the occupier or the factory owner regarding the fact that they were unaware of the same, right? So all these things are clearly defined. So the occupier has to do all the 5 roles as mentioned here. Then we come to the term health. For health specifically, I have included a very clear table form of key points where section 11 to 18 are defined, and for every section there is an associated definition for the same. For under health of the term of the Factories Act 1948, we have major 7 sections that are there, and the terms related to them are: section 11 is for cleanliness in every factory, 12 talks about the disposal of waste, garbages and effluents, 13 talk about ventilation and temperature setting, 14th talks about dust and fumes, 15 talk about artificial humidification. In some factories artificial humidification is very much required, so they artificially generate the humidity, but the level of the percentage of setting of humidity is very much clearly defined here. Then in 16 the term of overcrowding is explained, lighting is explained, there had to be adequate lighting, daylight or any kind of natural artificial light, and then for 18 we have a drinking water, right? So now let's understand each definition within this health term that is broadly classified. So cleanliness, student, comes under the section 11 of, like we have just seen previously. You need to remember that section 11 is for cleanliness under health definition, and it talks about the general health cleanliness to be maintained in the factory, regular cleaning and whitewashing and everything within 14 months of gap, and everything is clearly defined here. Then the disposal of waste or the effluents, it is defined in section 12, and it makes obligatory for the owner of every factory to make sure that there are arrangements for the treatment of waste and effluents made. All the garbage, solid in terms of solid, liquid or gas, has to be clearly disposed. They need to be, and this comes as a responsibility of the I would say the owner of the company, right? Then ventilation and temperature, again it comes under the section 13, and it talks about to make effective and suitable provisions for securing and maintaining in every workroom adequate ventilation and circulation of fresh air, right? Then dust and fumes is defined in section 14(1), and it deals with the measures adopted to keep the workroom free from dust and any kind of fume. And this basically comes under the responsibility of the occupier. Then for artificial humidification, we have section 15(1), and it says, it lays down that the humidity of the air is artificially increased. It has to be a certain level that is to be maintained. It cannot be arbitrary, right? Then the factory, this basically has further 10 subpoints that are defined of describing the prescriptive standard humidification, regulating the methods used for increasing the humidification, because otherwise it would become a very like a health hazard. So this has to be under the very clear instructions only. Directing prescribed tests for determining the humidity of air to be in, out and recorded. Prescribing the methods to be adopted for securing adequate ventilation and cooling of air in the room, right? Overcrowding also, there should not be too many workers working in the same room. So this is clearly defined in the Factories Act 1948, and it describes that no room for any factory shall be overcrowded to the extent that it becomes injurious to the health of the workers, right? Now along with that, the lighting term is also defined under the section 17(1), and it says that every room should have natural, artificial or both lighting proper, right? Drinking water also has to be a facility provided. It comes under section 18, and the arrangements of drinking water, clean water in the factory should be made available. Then the conservancy arrangements, should be provided for male and female workers separately at convenient places. Spittoons are also to be provided, again comes under the section 21 of this health definition in the Factories Act 1948, and it says that sufficient number of spittoons are to be provided at convenient place for the health and hygienic condition, right. So, as you can see here also, under the term of health as an umbrella term, several definitions are there, and all those definitions are associated with the particular section. Some important sections I have included in the beginning of the this particular topic. You can read there and understand it. Otherwise also, when we are reading these, when you are going to reread and do the re-revision also, these terms or the sections are going to be very easily be remembered by you. Now let's come to the term safety. So, safety in itself is a very important term under the Factories Act of 1958. Health was also important. We have actually been doing today the major definitions that are there in this Factories Act of 1948, and on those lines only, safety in itself has several very important sections and clear definition of all the terms or all the situations that might come and how they have to be dealt with in a factory or in an industry, right. Section 21 talks about the fencing of the machinery. There has to be specific protection made, or any kind of by walls or any like a bar, fencing kind of a situation where the entire premises of the factory or machine or the entire machinery is protected, right. This section states that the factory should fence the following machinery, substantial constructions, and maintaining them in the right position. They need to be well aligned and well kept also. Section 22 talks about the work on or near the machinery in motion. What is the basically under section 22 of the safety definition, the work on or the person who is working near the machine in motion, how they have to be, how close the distance has to be maintained, everything is defined in the section 22 of this. Section 23 talks about employment on dangerous machine. If any worker is working on any dangerous machine which might be like related to any kind of danger also, like there are nuclear chemicals or something like that, or any kind of harmful or very highly concentrated acid. So, in that section, the factory owners or managers cannot allow any worker to work any machine without instructing him or her about the dangers of the outcome or the relevant precautions, right. So, this is basically very much to be remembered. Section 24 talks about the devices for cutting of power. Basically, it says that there should be one particular I would say switch which can be easily turned off when there is any kind of health or any kind of an emergency situation appears, right. So, section 24 talks about it. Then we have section 25 which talks about the self-acting machinery. There are certain machineries which are self-acting. So, it states that no factory should allow any traversing part of self-acting machinery in any factory to run within a distance of 45 centimeters from a fixed structure and which is not a part of the machine. So, the distance that is to be maintained from the self-functioning machinery is also clearly defined under the section 25. Section 26 talks about the casing of a new machinery, right. I have included a fun fact here also. The state government may make rules specifying further safeguards to be provided with respect to any dangerous part of any particular machine or class of description of the machine. So, state government can do that, that is the responsibility they can perform. Then section 27 talks about prohibition of any employment of workers of women or children near the cotton openers. So when cotton openers have certain kind of fumes or certain kind of particles that come out which might create problem in the respiratory functioning. So definitely for such machines where there is a cotton opener, women and children will not be employed in that location, right. So it talks about that. So now I hope you can see from section 21 to section number 27 we have talked about the safety, all the particular provisions related to the safety guidelines. Now I come to another very important topic which talks about the welfare of workers. Like I just told you in the beginning also, and we have been discussing it in today's session very well also, that the welfare of the workers is very, very important. This chart might not be that clear to you, but don't worry, I'll just say it loudly so that you don't have any confusion regarding that. So basically the provisions regarding this welfare of the workers comes under the washing facility of section 42, right. Let me just write it down here. Washing, I hope you all can see the board and what I am writing here. Washing facility, or let me just take another white pen so that it becomes more easy for you to read. Right. So it talks about the washing facility which comes under the section 42. Then you have facilities for storing and drying. They come under clothing, basically clothing. This comes under section 43. Then you have facilities for sitting. So these are all a part of the welfare for in regard to the welfare of the workers. Section 44. Then you have first aid facility. This is very important in any industries which is dealing with any kind of hazardous chemicals or stuff like that. This comes under section 45. Then you have canteens, the refreshment part, it comes under section 46. Then you have shelters, restrooms, lunch rooms, they come under section 47. Then you have creches for women who have children under the age of 6 years. They are also clearly defined under the welfare of workers provision. Then you have welfare officers who are there designated for ensuring that there is smooth welfare methodology being maintained. So this is basically that comes under the provisions regarding the welfare of the workers. So now let me just take these entire terms related to the sections and the definitions one by one. The first definition talks about the washing and sitting facilities, right? Washing and sitting facilities, here in every factory it is clearly defined that adequate and suitable separate facilities for washing and cleaning should be provided for both male and female workers. Then the facilities of first aid and the ambulance room says important from the perspective of, so these are very important in terms of the question framing also, right? So what is the facility of first aid and how it is going to be? It says the first aid boxes or cupboards should readily be accessible or equipped with the contents. The number of boxes and cupboards should not be less than one for every 150 workers employed at any factory. So if there are 150 workers and or more, then you have to make sure that there is a good amount of first aid boxes available for each one of them, right? And in every factories for more than 500 workers, employed, there has to be a maintenance of an ambulance room with all the facilities, and it should be of prescribed size, containing equipments, qualified medical nursing staff, and so forth. Canteen and restrooms is basically where there are 250 workers or more. There has to be a definitely facility provided by the occupier. Also, in every factory where there are 150 or more workers employed, suitable shifters or the restrooms or lunch rooms with the provision for drinking water, where workers can eat meals, sorry, workers, it is not walkers, it is workers. Workers can eat meal and maintain for the use of their resting also, right. So, this particular like welfare of workers is very important, because this helps to create a very healthy environment in context of mental health, right. So, anybody who is happily perceived to be a part of the business organization, he or she will be more like open to provide their own output. So, definitely this has to be considered. Then it talks about the crèches facility. In every factory where there are more than 30 women, please remember, if there are more than 30 women and they have children below the years of 6 years, so they are going to be a part of, this is the duty of the occupier to have a facility of a crèche available in the factory, so that the mother and the child can be closely there with each other. The appointment of welfare officers, like I just told you, it again comes under the definition of welfare of workers only. It is basically the main duty of the welfare worker is to basically make sure that in every factories where there are more than 150 workers are ordinarily employed, the occupier of a factory is required to appoint such number of workers or welfare officers that are described as in accordance with the state government. This person appointed should be fully qualified and should know all the duties imposed on him or her regarding under the rules that are going to be followed in the factory or the business organization, right. So section 51 talks about the weekly hours, and weekly hours basically is 48 hours a week, as you can all see it here. Right? And then subsequently for section 52 we have the weekly holidays. The weekly holidays are clearly mentioned in the section 52. Section 53 defines the compensatory holidays. It says that if a person is working on the holiday, then he or she as a worker will be given holidays in future, and it is according to the timeline of next 2 months, right? So that the holiday on which he was or she was working, that is compensated. Then section 54 talks about the daily hours. So basically a worker is asked to work for 9 hours maximum, right, 9 hours per day, and anything beyond 9 hours is considered as overtime or overwork, right. Section 54(5) talks about rest intervals. After every 5 to 6 hours the worker has to be given a 30-minute or half an hour break, and this is mandatory. It depends upon the state governments also with where their factory has been running. Then section 56 talks about the spread over. Looking at the human limitation in working, this section states that the periods of work of adult worker in factory, including the intervals for the rest, should not spread for more than 10.5 hours in a day. So a worker is supposed to be just there working in the factory for not more than 10.5 hours, right. Then it section 57 for the working conditions for adult workers talks about night shifts. Basically for the like you can see here also, it provides clear clarification of the question related to night shifts. It states that if a worker works post midnight, then the provision of holidays under section 52 and 53 will be applicable for the next 24 hours after his shift ends. So you will not be like, even if the worker has done a night shift also, you are not going to call him the next day immediately at the same reporting time. You have to give him a 24-hour break, and then you can continue, and you can start on with the same working hours. Section 59 talks about the overtime and the extra wages, rewarding these workers who are trying to work for more than the maximum time, right. You need to reward them. They need to have certain goal of motivation that they receive from you, means from the business owners or from the occupiers, that they are providing more input, so they need to get that more extra wages. Section 60 talk about the double employment. No worker is allowed or required to work for more than one factory in a day. You are just supposed to work in one factory in a single day, and this comes under section 60 of the working hours of adult welfare provision. Now 61 talks about notice of periods of workers for adult. This section states that the factory manager should paste a notice on the wall about the time period of the work and for the workers. This has to be clearly defined so that there is no ambiguity or confusion. The manager has to comply with the time limiting sections like section 52. In the case the worker does not have to work at the same time, then the manager should specify the time or the particular time of the day where he or she can come and work. That flexibility or that understanding is between the worker and the manager basically. Section 62 is basically about the register of workers. This section states that the manager of the factory has to maintain a list regarding all the workers working in the industry or the factory, right. Let's move on to the last topic of today's discussion. After this we are going to do PYQs, and this particular topic is about the employment of the young persons. Okay, let's do the last topic for today's discussion. After that we are going to do the PYQs, very interesting PYQs, and everything is all the PYQs that we are going to discuss today are in accordance to the discussion that we have had today. The first, employment of young children or adolescents. Firstly, the term of adolescence is very clearly defined under this act. And also to avoid any kind of a situation of child labor also, this Factories Act is very strict in context of the rules and regulations, and no factory owner or the occupier can surpass that definition and try to violate it, right? So no factory can employ any person unless he or she has completed 14 years of age. This comes under section 67, okay? Thus, there is a total prohibition in employing children below 50, there is a particular prohibition of employing any person below 14 years of age. You cannot employ any children who is under the age of 14 years. It will be equivalent to the Child Labor Defamation Act, that is going to be case that is going to be then filed against the occupier. Regarding adolescent above the age of 15 years and below the age of 18 years, that person is considered as an adolescent. He too can only be employed in a factory unless, first condition, he is as the manager of the factory are in possession of a certificate. They need to have a clear certificate of their certified from a surgeon that he or she is well healthy, I would say, in work in a factory. Like sometimes there are situations where children because of certain unavoidable circumstances they have to work. So that child also, if he is from 15 to 18 years of age, he or she can work, but definitely it is very much after the certification that is provided, and the child has to carry that certificate with him or her during the working hours that he or she is working there, okay? Then there is an effect of certificate of fitness granted to adolescents. It is basically an adolescent who has not attained the age of 17 years but has obtained a certificate of fitness to work in a factory as an adult shall be required or allowed to work between just 6 to 7 p.m. The timeline here is clearly defined. If that he or she is basically having the certificate but has not attained the age of 17 years or so, then also that person need to just work in these particular number of hours. And then it says vary the limit down in this subsection. So however, no subsection authorize employment of any female adolescents between 10 and 5 p.m. This is basically an employment for any female adolescent who is working. So this is basically how it is going to be for a female employee. Grant exemption from the provision of this subsection in the case of serious emergencies where national interest is involved. If there is a national interest involved, then clearly there will be no allowing of the adolescent workers, right? I hope now you have understood the how even if there is an adolescent worker working in a factory or an industry, there are certain rules or the regulations the occupier has to abide by, right? So of course they are treated as a worker only, but they are treated with utmost care, because we cannot deny the fact that at the end of the day they are children only. So they cannot be just treated in the similar way that a worker is. There has to be like a little neutral way of approaching with them or dealing with them, right? Working hours for children, basically since they are from 14 to 18 years of age, the maximum of work lasting 4.5 hours in a day. For adult it used to be 8 to 9 hours, right? But for children it is specifically maximum hours is 4.5 hours, right? The number of work is to be limited to shifts only. Definitely we know that. The shifts are not to be overlapped. There cannot be extra or overwork given to the children. The spread over is, if there is overtime also, not more than 5 hours. This is strictly mentioned there. The child is to be employed only in one relay. The child is going to do only one kind of a work at the one machinery. He or she will not be doing n number of work in the factory at the same time. The spread over is not to change except in 30 days. Even if there is a spread over also for exceeding for 5 hours, but then you have to wait for 1 month, and then next month you give that ask that child to do a I would say overwork, right? So that is how it is for them. No exemption for the provision of section 52 dealing with weekly holidays is there. But when there is a holiday, For adult workers, there was still some exemptions, but for child worker there is absolutely no exemption. If it is a holiday, the child worker or the adolescent worker is supposed to be having a holiday. Employment during night is definitely not prohibited, is completely prohibited for the adolescent worker, right? So these are the main key points that come under the employment of a working child, right, of a young person. I would still call him or her a child, because somebody definitely who has not attained 18 years of age, according to me, is still a child only, right? But that is just a personal perspective for me. Now let's do the PYQs quickly. The first PYQ, as you can see here, it says which following industries was first established during the British rule of India. If you go with the first slide that we did today, where we began our session today with the discussion of the history here, right? So clearly it is mentioned the jute and the mill cotton industry, right? So coming back, you can easily answer this. Cotton and jute industry. Then which one of the following is not a welfare provision for under the Factories Act of 1948? For the welfare, canteen can be a part of welfare, crutches, first aid, but drinking water is not a part of the welfare. It is basically a basic necessity or facility, that is to be provided. It does not come under the welfare provision like canteen, crutches and the first aid. Ambulance room is provided in the case of, basically, if you remember when we did the the health definition, the ambulance room was basically for a first aid box was for 150 employees and ambulance was for 500 employees, if you can clearly see that, right? Just a second. Yes, here 500 workers, we did that, right? So basically 150 workers, for every 150 workers there will be a first aid box, and for 500 workers there will be a facility of ambulance rooms. The D is option, right? You can see here also, students, the questions are very basic. You need to be thorough with the concept that we are studying. When you are concentrating and you are being very much involved with the classes and you are revising your notes, these are very easy questions for you to attempt, right? Anybody who has attended this session with a lot of concentration and with a lot of focus, he or she can easily answer these questions. Let's move forward. Fourth question, when was the first Factories Act enacted? So basically it was enacted in the year 1885. Let me just go back, where for the first time it was enacted in the year. Again, going back to the history, the first time the Factories Act was enacted was in the year 1881, right? 1851 it was already running, and in 1881 the Factories Act was passed for the first time, right? Okay. Then you have the first Commission of Labour, Commission on Labour was submitted report in the year 1969. It is a part, actually I have not taught this, but it can be a part of your general GK question also related to labour law. First aid boxes to be provided to definitely 150 of the persons. Then as per the Factories Act of 1948, canteen should be provided in a factory where more than how many workers? It is basically not more than 250. Let me just go back and let's see that where did we studied about the canteen thing. Yes, 250. Can you see that? So for 250 workers. Who is an adolescent as per the Factories Act of 1948? We have already read that in just the previous slides. A person who is basically between 15 to 18 years. Let's go back and see. Yes, an adolescent who has attained the age of 17 years, but has, sorry, not this one. Yes, this one, above the age of 15 years and below the age of 18 years. So basically this comes under option, the option is C, right. The Factories Act of 1948 provides creches facility and maintained for the use of children under the age of 6 years, right. And how many employees or female working employees must be there? If you remember, it was about more than 30 years. Let's go back and check that we did it right. It is basically comes under the welfare definition. So under that, yes, so it has to be 6 years and more than 30 women workers, right. Now let me just take you through a few more questions. Section 49 of the Factories Act covers, basically it covers welfare officer. This is basically a factual question, so you need to know this. Okay, weekly hours, canteens and emergency standards are not under this, right. Now the questions that I have included are, if you remember the table that we did in the beginning, so adult itself is defined under the section, if you can recall it, it comes under the section of 2A, right. According to me it's 2A. I hope you have freezed your answer. Let's go back and check whether it is 2A or not. Yes, it is comes under the section 2A, right. Option A. Adult is a person who has completed, this we have already done in the previous questions, 14, right. Section 2C of the Act defines, if you remember the section 2C and you can recall it, it is competent person. Let's go back and check that if is section 2C defining the Act defines a competent person. So as you can see here right now, students, these charts are very easy for you, so that you remember clearly during your exam. So sorry, it was not 2C, it is 2CA. Okay. So basically for 2C we have the option for child. Okay. A person who is not 15-year-old is definitely a child. Okay. A person who has turned 17 yesterday, which is a statement is true. The person is a child. The person is a child as well as an adolescent. The person was an adolescent 1 year back, right? All of the above. So for this particular statement, I would say since the person has turned 17 yesterday, so he or she is right now an adolescent only, right? So the person was an adolescent 1 year back, and so basically this person is an adolescent, and I would say the C option. Then section 2CB of the Factories Act defined basically child labor, labor process or hazardous process. It is basically hazardous process. Okay. Then moving on, question 35, a person. Okay, so last two questions for the discussion today. Day is a 24-hour period that begins as 6 a.m. Sorry, second. 6 a.m. No, as per the definition that is there of the definition of a day, it begins at midnight at 12. So 12 a.m. basically. So basically this statement is false. Okay. Then comes according to the Factories Act of 1948, the week starts at the midnight of Saturday. The power, so this is basically a question that is you are going to be attempting when you are doing we are defining the term power, and that we are going to do in the next class, right. So I hope you have understood the session for today and everything that we have done today and all the important definitions that were there. If you have any doubts, you can share your doubts in the chat box and I'll be answering your doubts. For this particular session, I am closing the session right now. Thank you. Take care.